Hello and welcome to today's edition of Leadership Dialogue, the platform where we move beyond headlines to examine the decisions, challenges, and bold visions shaping today's leaders. From politics and governance to business, innovation, and social impact, we bring you thoughtful, in-depth conversations with individuals driving transformation in Nigeria and, of course, across the globe. This is where ideas are tested, perspectives are challenged, and leadership is unpacked, one conversation at a time. My name is Omotola Adeleke. Esther Ondoma is also here with me. Esther, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
All right, we are also joined by Dr. Victor Kwambuge, Sustainable Development Expert and CEO of Elite Scholars Institute, a voice deeply engaged in governance systems, policy reform, and sustainable transformation. Dr. Kwambuge, welcome to Leadership Dialogue, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right, so today we ask a question that sits at the heart of our national struggle. Governance failure in Nigeria, is it a result of leadership weakness or structural defect? Is Nigeria underperforming because those in charge lack vision, courage, and integrity? Or is it the system itself designed in a way that frustrates even the most well-intentioned leaders, from rising debt figures released by the Debt Management Office to fiscal projections shaped by institutions like the International Monetary Fund? Questions of accountability, sustainability, and institutional reform remain urgent. Once again, Dr. Kwambuge, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Omotola.
You know, we've had complaint. A lot of Nigerians, majority of Nigerians have complained about some reforms, some anti-people policies in the country. Now, the question here is this as a result of governance failure? Or you think our leaders just met this system and it's probably not your fault? It's structural, it's systemic, it's something that they met there, and it's probably not their fault. It's not, especially even well-intentioned leaders too. Is it just a systemic thing, or it's just them intentionally failing Nigerians?
Thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon to you and to your esteemed viewers all over the world. You've raised some very important and salient issues that bedevils us as a people. Nigeria as a nation is currently at a crossroads, and depending on which side of the fence you sit, you can be able to maybe profile or analyze the solution, as it were. From the historical standpoint, so many people have blamed these problems that you have highlighted on some defect that has to do with our historical journey with our colonial masters. You will recall that after the amalgamation in 1914, the subsequent colonial masters that came attempted a lot of reforms in Nigeria. For instance, the Richard Constitution in 1946 that came divided Nigeria into 3 regions. From then, complaints started. Complaint in the sense that some people complained that there was a lot of structural defect, in the sense that one part of the country was bigger than the sum total of other part of the country even when joined together. We started this journey on this kind of note, on this kind of divisive note, to the extent that even the political parties that were formed, that formed the foundation of our political journey, assumed regional, ethnic, and even religious dimension. For example, when Ahmadu Bello, Tafawa Balewa, and some of the northern creams formed what they called the Northern People's Congress, it was an offshoot of a Hausa Fulani cultural organization known as the Jami'ar Mutanen Arewa. The same thing with Obafemi Awolowo when he formed the Action Group. It was an offshoot of a Yoruba cultural organization known as the Egbe Omo Oduduwa. Nnamdi Azikiwe formed the NCNC, trying to give it a national coloration. But at the end of the day, it also was subsumed by this ethnic politics. So if you look at it from the historical point of view, you can see that we didn't start on a very solid, patriotic, nationalistic
Because you're saying the split in these regions was the initial problem.
Exactly. So that is why I said from the historical point of view.
Okay.
Now, let us take it a step further. When we started our journey from 1960 till date, 2026, you will see that as far as the leadership of this country is concerned, we have never been lucky to have a leader that has all of the attributes that you have mentioned.
Okay.
Talking about vision, talking about purpose, talking about clarity, and what have you. In many cases, we have had people that find themselves on the corridor of power accidentally. For example, the first prime minister that started, Sir Bakar Tafawa Balewa, was preparing himself to represent the northern region in the parliament before some northern creams actually imposed the prime ministership on him. When we had another opportunity in the Second Republic to start another democratic journey, Alhaji Shehu Shagari had already printed his posters to represent Sokoto North in the Nigerian Senate in the Second Republic. Before it's now down on him that before some people came that you have to succeed Olusegun Obasanjo, who was then the military head of state, and that was how Alhaji Shehu Shagari became the executive president of the country. The Third Republic, of course, was defunct. Abiola won election, but he didn't see the light of the day. In 1998 again, when we had another opportunity to return back to democracy, Olusegun Obasanjo was in prison. You know that the most important thing that is on the mind of every prisoner, how do I regain my freedom and how do I rejoin my family? To the extent that Obasanjo was famously quoted by asking some of the people that approached him about the presidency that, how many presidents do you want to make out of me? In 1976, I was the head of state. Now you also want me to become president. 2007, Obasanjo was leaving. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, was selected on the basis of his integrity.
Sorry to cut you short, Anito. Are you saying 2007, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo came up on board, that was a mistaken leadership? Are you saying it shouldn't have even happened at all?
Well, using the word mistake may sound very harsh and extreme, but if that actually represents what I'm saying, that is actually the case. Mistake in the sense that Umar Musa Yar'Adua, everybody knew that he was battling with his ill health, rounding up as the governor of Katsina State, thinking about how do I recuperate, how do I regain my strength, how do I even join the academia again in Zaria to teach chemistry. But it was imposed on him that you have to continue as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as against other 22 other candidates that were prepared, campaigning, canvassing towards the length and breadth of this country on how to become president. Today we have, before Asuwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, we had Muhammadu Buhari of blessed memory. Muhammadu Buhari contested election more than 4 times. In 2011, after the Supreme Court verdict, Buhari told everyone that he is done. Enough is enough. He is not going to contest for the presidency of the country again, and what have you. In 2014, the merger actually down on him again. They've said that he had to come and continue. Today we have Ahmed Tinubu trying to steer the ship of leadership. Why do we go into this historical journey? To address some of these issues that you have mentioned. Any nation where leadership doesn't come prepared, any nation where leaders don't really have a vision. Make a little comparative analysis. In the United States of America, for example, we had instances where Barack Obama had written 2 books on what he intends to achieve if he is given an opportunity to become the president of the United States. Dreams from My Forefathers, Audacity of Hope. You read through the pages of these books, you will see a leader that from a very early stage is already preparing himself for positions of leadership. The same thing with Nelson Mandela, when he wrote his Long Walk to Freedom, his 29 years imprisonment and what have you. So in our own case, when you mention the issue of, right now we are facing a lot of debt crisis, we have a lot of this, the first question to ask is to what extent are the people that we have at the helm of affairs even prepared ab initio to become, to assume the roles that we always have them.
Okay. Quickly, now that you have said the foundational problem of Nigerian leadership was as a result of accidental, according to your words, accidental leaders, people who were not prepared. How would you have intended our leaders to be prepared? If were to follow the likes of people like Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela, and the rest of them. Nelson Mandela was a prisoner as well. He came out of prison, and of course, we all know the story. Olusegun Obasanjo, just like you mentioned too, came out of prison. How was that even an accidental, leadership bestowed on him? You talked about Yar'Adua, of course, too. Yar'Adua came on board. We could say during that time, we had lots of individuals in Nigeria who could come out to say Yar'Adua did his best, before he died. So if you're saying this were foundational problems, these accidental leaders, how did you intend? How would you have said it? Okay, we know this is prepared. We know Obasanjo is prepared. We know Yar'Adua is prepared. How would you have seen it?
Yeah, so the fundamental problem we have in our democracy is our recruitment system, starting from the political parties. The political parties, under normal circumstances, to what extent is internal democracy, which is the first primary point, junction of starting any kind of democratic journey. That is the motto pack of starting any kind of democratic journey. To what extent are these political parties even prepared to strengthen their internal democratic system to produce credible leaders, borrowing your words now, leaders that are well prepared, leaders that are visionary enough, leaders that have all it takes to be able to proffer workable solutions to the myriads of problems that we have in the country. So it starts from our political parties. You ask for my recommendation, I will tell you that the current electoral reforms that is being proposed, that is currently at the National Assembly, is actually the way to go. I wish that this electoral reforms is going to see the light of the day. I wish the electoral reforms is going to be comprehensive enough to be able to address the exact problem that we have in our democratic journey. I am telling you, by the time we assemble credible candidates in 2-3 political parties, and Nigerians are now having the option of selecting the best from the best that we have. Of course, we are going to start that journey. But if we continue to play politics with these electoral reforms that we have been talking about, you see every day people going to the National Assembly, every day people are on the street protesting, oh, we don't want this. Okay, we are going to include a proviso, there is going to be a clause on this. If we continue to play politics, I'm telling you, we are going to be taking some kinds of dance that is going to be 1 step forward but 3 steps back.
Okay, before Esther coming quickly, the electoral reform issue. The president already passed this electoral act amendment into law. We had couple individuals, even some people from the National Assembly protested against it, but yet it was swiftly, passed into law. Are you telling me that you're okay with what was passed into law by the president? Because you're saying if it's going to see the light of the day, despite the fact that, especially the part that has to do with electronic transmission of result, lots of Nigerians, had issues with the real-time clause and all that. So are you satisfied with the way it was passed?
Satisfaction is a very ambitious word.
You know why I'm asking this? Because if we look at it very well, it might affect the credibility of the 2027 election.
Exactly. The main problem we have in all of this hula-baloo that you see generated by these electoral reforms is trust deficit. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves in the sense that the inclusion of this clause under normal circumstances is not supposed to generate the noise that it's generating. What it actually says is that in the event that this fails, we can resort to this. Under normal circumstances, having a contingency plan, having plan B is not a problem. But our problem, like I said, is that there is a big trust deficit. We don't trust the people making these laws. And the people making these laws also do not trust the sincerity of the electorate to say that, okay, we don't want to put in place some kind of laws and regulations that is going to end up shooting ourselves on the foot. So the problem, like I said, is the motive. People are feeling that, okay, the reason why you are including this clause that
is so rigged or something
is to provide a platform for you to tell us on the elections day that, okay, the electronic side is not working effectively, so we have to resort back to manual way of transmission. After all, the electoral act that was passed actually said this. That is the actual suspicion. And you cannot blame Nigerians for having this kind of suspicion, because where we are coming from democratically, we have seen it all. Most of our elections, in fact, from 1964 general elections that were contested by the NNA, that alliance that was formed between NPC and the NCNC, you can see that it was actually marred by a lot of electoral irregularities. The same thing in the Second Republic, the same thing even in the current Fourth Republic, 1999, 2003, 2007, 2011, all of these elections. To the extent that one Nigerian president, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, declared on the day of his inauguration that I admit that the process that brought me into power is marred by a lot of irregularities. But I'm committed to ensuring that I fix this problem. So we need to have leaders that are actually sincere. When you say you are making a reform, be sincere about any clause that you are including. Don't include a clause because you feel that it is something that is going to be your escape bed during the next election. But include it because, like I said, at first, I didn't have any problem with it. Well, sometimes these gadgets can fail us. Sometimes you can be using your phone and maybe a particular app is going to fail you and what have you. Of course, you have to think of a plan B. But where the intention, the intent, the motive for including that clause is actually seen or perceived to help you to achieve a particular objective in the future. That is where the problem is.
Okay.
Okay, so you've already stated that the major problem is the internal democracy. So how do we bring about a leader who can succeed in what most of us term, a failed system?
How do we succeed in bringing up leaders? I will still go back to the earlier point I made about strengthening our recruitment systems. Everything about leadership actually stems from how do you recruit that leader? It's okay for everybody to claim that I can be a leader. It's okay, talk is cheap, they say. It's okay for anybody to say, I can fix the problem. I can do this, I can do that. But when the chips are down, are you able to provide a workable solution to the myriads of crises that we have in the country? So if you ask me how, the how actually has to do with, number one, the intent. By the time we elect leaders that truly have an intention, I will still go back to that Omotola example that I gave you. To be very honest with you, I trusted everything he said on that inauguration speech, that he was committed to strengthening our electoral systems. He was committed to strengthening our electoral. And we saw that in his brief stay in power, he had actually made a lot of moves that pointed us towards that direction. Unfortunately, fate actually had its way. But if really we have leaders that are committed to ensuring that they strengthen our internal democratic system, from the political parties, from the ward level, from the local government level, the state level, we have leaders that truly have all it takes. They are patriotic enough. They think about the interest of this country. Number one, Nigeria is number two, and Nigeria is number three. That is when we can be able to have that.
All right. You don't have an issue with the backup plan, the manual transmission of results should in case the electronic transmission fails, right? Hope I'm correct.
Yes,
you don't have an issue.
Especially if the intention is actually sincere.
Okay, now this is why I'm asking this. Lots of Nigerians have come out to say, we make transactions on phones. We do other transactions electronically, even if it doesn't go through. There are times when the network might just fluctuate, and at the end of the day, it's still going to go through. Now, we invited a guest one time here, and he made mention of something. He said that the beavers can still work offline. Now, this is someone who, one way or the other, is connected to the INEC. Yes, that beavers can work offline. What it's going to do if there's a network glitch is to store the data, and at the end of the day, when there's network, it takes it in and it reflects. You understand? So, what would you think about if that can actually work? Then why do we need a backup in a global situation where there's AI? In fact, telecommunication companies have come out to say MTN and the rest of them. Even 2G network can transmit our results. So why do you need a backup? Despite the fact that our telecommunication companies have come out to assure Nigerians that even a 2G network can work.
I am not a tech expert in the real sense of the word, but using the analogy you gave, the example you gave about transactions. Yesterday, I made a transaction. I wanted to transfer some amount to someone. It actually showed me that, okay, there is a problem, there is a glitch, there is a system glitch, but I was debited. The person didn't receive. So, and that transaction was supposed to be urgent. We waited for some time. I had to run to my bank. The bank said I should give it some time. Maybe it's going to hit my account. So the summary of the whole thing is that today I had to return to that same bank, and later on I got a reversal. Okay. That is a classical example of what happens sometimes. So it's not all the time that we take this example holistically, that the way the beavers is going to work is going to store everything, then it's going to deliver. What if there is a case of reversal, just like the example give you, that maybe after the whole elections process are concluded, you go to the INEC office, okay, collation have started and some results are being reversed. So, but what I'm saying is that I understand, like I said, I don't blame anybody that is thinking this way, that maybe these people are organizing this thing so that it can provide an escape route for them during the electoral period. But the primary or the basic issue actually stems from the trust deficit that we have. Any policy, from the little time that I have been following political events in Nigeria, there is no policy that is ever introduced in Nigeria without the Nigerian people actually attaching some primordial motives to it. Any kind of policy, no matter how beautifully crafted it is, people will think, oh, they want to do this, or maybe they want to do this and that. And that is because the government have actually not been able to do enough in terms of convincing people to earn their trust, to end their trust in the sense that any kind of reforms that the government want to bring to strengthen our electoral system, people are actually going to see it differently. Are you going to blame them? No, it is because of our journey. We are coming from a nation whereby in a democracy, they say the minority will have their say, but the majority will have their way. In our own climate, it is the minority having their way, which is actually not supposed to be the case. And that is the reason why people will continue to doubt. People will continue to have skepticism about any kind of policy that is taken by the government. And like I said, I will repeat again, you cannot blame them.
All right.
Okay, speaking on democracy, given that most of the Nigerians are clamoring for this electoral act, there were protests, many leaders came out to protest and they still passed into law. Does it mean that they don't listen to us?
Like protests are ineffective.
Because there were protests, there were so many, even in National Assembly, there were votes of yeas and nays. They still went ahead. I thought we were supposed to be democratic in nature.
Yes, the hallmark of any kind of democratic practice anywhere in the world is that you must listen to the voices of the people. Democracy is about the people. Are they not listening well enough? Well, I would say I accept that with a pinch of salt. I think that protest was effective to some extent. Effective in the sense that I can see how that protest yielded some results.
What result exactly? Because if you're saying it yielded results, after the protest, the law was still passed. After the protest, people still came out, to protest against what was passed into law.
Yeah, not what was passed into law in its entirety, but a clause that was included in the law. But the electronic transmission of result was passed. So, and to that extent, you cannot really say that the protest didn't achieve any result. But the bone of contention right now is the fact that why including a clause that in the event that this didn't work, we are going to resort back to this. And we feel that the reason why you are including this proviso is to enable you to be able to achieve or to defeat the objective of that first. So if we say the protest didn't achieve result at all, like I said, I am not going to accept that 100%. It yielded results, but the problem is, again, the trust deficit that I keep mentioning on this show. It's actually manifesting its ugly head again. It's manifesting because people feel that the reason why you are including this clause is to enable you to have your way during the election, and so that you will not even transmit the result electronically at the end of the day. That is an assumption, but again, it is something that it is a possibility, and it can also be an impossibility.
All right. Let's talk about democracy once again. If Nigeria is truly a democratic dispensation, why does accountability feels optional rather than mandatory? Especially to hold our leaders accountable with the actions we see they do, with the reforms, some anti-people policies and all that. We are a democratic dispensation, for crying out loud. But accountability seems to be taken with a pinch of salt.
We have the problem of patriotism, starting from the leaders to the followership. Patriotism, because I feel that the people who are electing into the positions of authority do not really love this nation to the extent that, when they go outside the shores of this country, they see how things are done. They see how accountable leaders are to their people. Let me give you this brief example. 2018 July, I found myself in Kigali. The driver that picked me from the airport was called Bruno. I met him for the first time. He picked me, we started a conversation, and somehow I wanted to engage because he was interested in having that conversation with me. I also wanted to make the conversation flowing. So I now asked him, "You're from this country?" He now said yes. So we got talking. I just cracked my brain. What do I know about Rwanda? Because that was my first time in Rwanda. What do I know about Rwanda? I remember the movies I watched sometimes in April, Hotel Rwanda and what have you. So I asked him, I said, that genocide that happened in 1994, were you born there? He laughed. He said, yes, he was a small kid. His mom had to escape to Burundi with him and what have you. So, and I asked him, the crisis was between these two tribes, Hutu and Tutsi. He now said yes. So which of the tribes are you? He declined to respond to me. So I asked for the second time. He declined. So I felt that he lost interest in that conversation. So I decided to just be on my phone. It was 2 a.m. in the night. He was driving me to my hotel. So when we got to the hotel, he told the receptionist in their local dialect that, please, you want to take my bags to my room. You want to show me to my room. So fine. So when we got there, I thought he wanted to wave me goodbye. As he just switched on the light of the room, he held my hand and said, my brother, throughout your stay in this country, please don't ask anybody his tribe, whether he's Suti or he's Hutu. Don't ask religion, whether you are Muslim or you are Christian. In this country, we are all Rwandese. And if I tell you that experience didn't just shock me, number one, and it also redirected my thinking about how I see citizenship, how I see patriotism. And the little time I stayed in the country, I studied some of the policies of Paul Kagame, the president of Rwanda. And I saw that most of the policies that were taken in that country were born out of real patriotism. Most of the things they do is about Rwanda first. How do they promote their identity? How do they promote their culture? How do they instill the culture of accountability even from the nursery school pupils? From the time they go to the school, they go to their classes, I see how they emphasize this. What I'm trying to say is that, is it possible for us to be able to start transferring some of these tenets to even our students, to even our pupils at the school level? Instead of asking these pupils to say Muslim prayer, Christian prayers at the assembly ground, why don't we start talking to them about, or ringing the bells of accountability? Why don't we start ringing the bells of patriotism? Why don't we start talking to them about the need for them to be their brother's keeper? Why don't we start talking to them about the real benefit of that brotherhood, citizen code, and what have you? Instead of just ringing it on as a jingle on our television, that how many people even have access to watch these television stations?
And
so
this could be taught as subject in school.
Yes, they brought in civic education as a way to promote some of these things that I'm telling you. But to what extent is the curriculum design of civic education addressing some of these issues that I'm talking about? Under normal circumstances, when you're teaching people civic education, it is because you want to instill a particular culture in the minds of the student. We are all graduates now. To what extent, how many of our teachers or lecturers enter the classroom one day and talk to us about the benefit of me seeing you, Omotola, as a Yoruba man now, that you are my brother? Under normal circumstances, I should not ask about where you're from. Instead, I should see you first as a Nigerian. I see Esther now. I should first and foremost see her, that she is my sister first and foremost, before I start asking about her religion, before I start asking about her tribe and what have you. When are we going to start instilling this? From the president, the vice president, the ministers, the senators, the House of Representatives, the governors. These are the kind of objectives that by the time we push, corruption becomes a taboo in our system. Because when you're corrupt, we see that you don't love the country enough. That is why you are embezzling and siphoning our commonwealth.
All right, now quickly, let's move on to the debt profile in Nigeria. Nigeria debt profile has risen to over 153 trillion naira. You know, combining federal, state, and the FCT debt altogether is over 153 trillion naira, if I'm correct. Now, why do our leaders keep borrowing these loans? Why do they keep taking these loans? Because, of course, they come out on TV, they come out to the public to tell us that these loans are taken for infrastructural development, for growth, and yet people are still poor. Poverty is still
It's increasing,
exponentially, actually. So why do they keep borrowing?
The last time I checked, I don't think there is any country in the world that is debt-free.
Okay.
There's no country like that. China borrows, United States of America borrows, all the developed countries that you can think about, their debt profile is also. But the problem about borrowing is, why do you borrow? Do you borrow for some kinds of I don't want to use some harsh words. I'm careful about my words. But do you borrow for trivial expenses, or do you borrow to really invest into your economy? If the borrowing is about addressing some of our economic challenges, like the infrastructural deficits that we have in the country, because no meaningful economic growth and development can take place in an environment where the infrastructure is weak. For example, when you are not able to have a stable power supply, are killing the small-scale industries and even industrialization in the country. Are you borrowing to address some real issues that has to do with how to help your macroeconomic drives to be able to push the country from point A in 2026 to point B in 2028? If the answer is yes, I will tell you there is nothing wrong in borrowing, because in the long run, this borrowing is going to have a positive impact on our economy. Development is about the people. Yes. When I say development is about the people, I mean Dudley Sayers in 1969 said 3 questions need to be asked when you're talking about a country's development. First, you ask what is happening to poverty. Second, you ask what is happening to unemployment. Third, you ask what is happening to inequality. If these 3 indices are rising from top to low, you cannot talk about development. So are you borrowing in order to address the problems of poverty in the land? Or even after borrowing, even after all the frightening figures that you have mentioned, we see on the television screen that we are gradually becoming the poverty capital in the world. Then that is where the problem becomes.
You know, I still have a little problem with this borrowing. You know why? There was a time the presidency came up on board and said, okay, the president Bola Ahmed Tinubu has removed subsidy. We've saved a lot of money. And with that, our borrowings will reduce, but yet we still keep borrowing. In fact, lately, the World Bank I think a loan has been taken from the World Bank, about $500 million or so. So do we still need to keep borrowing? Is this something that is mandatory to do for our economic stability?
Yeah, so that is why I said, left to me, I don't think there is anything wrong.
Because since we have savings from fuel subsidy,
yes,
our IGR, according to them, is increasing. Our GDP is improving. So why do we still need to borrow? Because at the end of the day, this might get to impoverish Nigerians probably in the future.
So assuming the whole thing that you are mentioning is on the positive, we are not going to be talking about this. And that is why I said that the problem is not borrowing, but why are we borrowing? So if we are borrowing to finance or to fund some trivial expenses, that is where the borrowing will impoverish Nigerians, like you said. It's not going to have any impact on poverty. It's not going to create jobs. It's not going to have any kind of impact on our national income. But in the event where we borrow in order to invest in some critical areas of our economy, that in the long run is going to have impact on these three indices of development that I told you. Honestly speaking, I don't have problems.
You know, I actually understand where you're coming from, but I'm still going to ask again. Is our fuel subsidy savings not enough? Is our internally generated revenue not enough to, you know, make sure these things are in place, to make sure these reforms are being implemented? Why do we still need to borrow if we have this amount of money to, you know, implement these things with?
So going by the figures that is being released by the economic handlers of this nation, under normal circumstances, we should have saved enough from this fuel subsidy that you have mentioned. Going by the narratives that we keep getting from the powers that be, that, okay, as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy, we no longer pay, this is what we're saving now. In fact, they said that governors get a lot of money now. It's payment of salaries, is delays in payment.
In fact, the highest so far.
Yeah, it's no longer an issue and what have you. So I wish that the impact goes beyond the issue of payment of salaries.
Okay.
I wish the impact actually goes beyond just releasing quarterly report and just telling us that we have saved this, but we still have to borrow, etc. I wish that the impact is actually seen in the life of an average Nigerian. I wish the impact is actually seen in the reduction in our unemployment figures. That, okay, last year or last quarter, we have this percentage of unemployment rate in the country, but right now, this figure is decreasing as a result of the... So I wish these are the kind of issues we hear, or these are the kind of feedbacks we get as a result of this. I'm telling you, even the way you will craft this question is going to be completely different. We are going to be interrogating to what extent is the impact that we are getting from the removal of fuel subsidy impacting the life of an average Nigerian.
Okay.
Rather than even asking ourselves, why do we keep borrowing again? Because like I said, there's nothing wrong with borrowing, but there is a lot of things that is wrong if the motive for borrowing is not actually transparent enough.
Okay.
True. So, I want to divert a lot from this. Let's talk about the issue of insecurity in Nigeria, because lately it feels more like it's growing. First of all, let me ask, do you think there's Christian genocide in Nigeria?
Do I think there is Christian genocide? Yeah, this morning it was actually a conversation between me and some few persons in my office. I do not really like this aspect of profiling our insecurity problems as a country. Because on a national TV this morning, I saw them maybe writing something about, oh, it's Fulani terrorists, these terrorists. And I now said, is it possible for us to start looking at this problem on its own merits, rather than trying to profile it to an ethnic group, profile it to a particular religion? The fact is, as humanly speaking, human beings are killed. These human beings are Christians. These human beings are Muslims, depending on your geographical location at a particular point in time, and depending on where you stand. But when you try to bring a lot of coloration, when you're trying to paint it to make it look like, okay, it is we against them, then we are not really ready to address the problem of insecurity in the country. The fact is there is insecurity in Nigeria. Nobody's going to deny it.
So are you saying the United States of America probably has an external agenda for targeting a Christian genocide? Because they are insisting, as at yesterday, the US lawmakers submitted a report to President Donald Trump, and they still insisted that there's Christian genocide in Nigeria, despite the fact that the Minister of Communications, Information rather, came out to say, no, we are still insisting there's no Christian genocide in Nigeria. Why do you think the United States is still insisting?
People keep getting
External
abducted.
agenda, I don't agree with that, whether the United States have an external agenda or not. What I see is a country that is really serious about coming to assist us. And that assistance is the fact that, like I said, a lot of people are being killed senselessly. People go to their worship centers, people are in their churches praying, some people are in their mosque praying, and some hoodlums will just go, some criminals will just go and, massacre them in a very senseless manner. That is very condemnable. And I think the efforts of the United States of America is actually something that is supposed to be received with open arms.
So you're supporting the intervention of the US?
Absolutely, 100%.
But the US intervened December 25. In fact, they called it a Christmas gift. Despite that intervention, despite the missile that was sent to Sokoto, terrorist enclave was bombarded. That was a claimers at that time. Despite that, we'll still have escalated issues of
increasing
kidnapping.
numbers.
As a matter of fact, it has increased exponentially, if you ask me. So why do you think it's like that? If we need international aid came. But it's still of no effect, if you ask me.
Omotola, to be very candid with you, I have taken many studies on insecurity in Nigeria. Even as a scholar in that field, it is the cause of this problem, or even the solution to this problem, is one area that even the best brains in the academia cannot be able to provide. Remember when there was a change in the security architecture of this country, Siju Musa became the Minister of Defense. There was a lot of excitement. People felt that, this is... At that point, I felt that we are just 2 weeks away from addressing these problems of insecurity. But where are we today? Every day you get different kinds of report, different kinds. So, to be very honest, if I tell you I have a straightforward answer to give you that why these things keep happening. Yes, you said the 25th of December intervention was actually greeted with a lot of optimism. People felt that, it has started. Maybe we are very close to, but we're in February today, and this problem keep on happening. The intervention of the United States, like I said, is something that I love it very well. It's just like, your house is on fire, neighbors are coming to assist you quench that fire, and you are trying to say, okay, maybe they have an external agenda, maybe this water they're bringing to help me quench this fire, maybe there is something they want to achieve. Your most important problem, your most important focus at that time is, how do I quench this fire that is burning my house? So we have a fundamental problem in the country, and that problem is insecurity. Christian, Muslim, pagans, everybody deserves to live. As far as the Federal Republic of Nigeria is concerned, Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution provides everybody with a fundamental human right to life.
All right.
And that right to life is supposed to be enjoyed by everyone, irrespective of your religious creed, irrespective of your ethnic affiliation.
All right. I'm going to conclude with this question. You know the National Assembly better than I do, obviously. Now, I want to ask you a question on the National Assembly. The oversight function of the National Assembly seems to be weak. Because, I don't know, a lot of people have come here to say the legislative arm of the government is like an extension of the executive arm of the government. What would you have to say to that? Because, bills come up on board and it's just passed. The executive get to say this and it's not questioned and it's just passed that way. Is, the legislature becoming a lapdog for the executive?
So when you say the oversight function is weak, I will be tempted to ask again, how did we come up with that kind of a conclusion? Is it that there are no oversight functions performed by the lawmakers? Or is it because maybe the lawmakers are not loud enough to say this is where we are at this point and this is where we are going? Or what actually is the basis for coming up with this kind of assessment? I would say I've had a lot of commentaries where people say, this is a rubber stamp National Assembly, this is an extension of ASOROC, this and that. But to cry out loud, have we taken out time as Nigerians? The National Assembly always organize public hearings. How many people attend? Sometimes I go to the halls of this public hearing, and the kind of attendance I see is not the kind of attendance that is encouraging for a country like ours. Sometimes you see that they are doing public. In fact, tomorrow I think there's going to be a public hearing about human rights, legal justice, and what have you.
Okay.
Go there and see if you are going to see a lot of stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, I mean people that are actually interested in that particular matter. Sometimes there is public hearing about state creation. Sometimes public hearing about electoral reforms. How many people do you see in that room? But the problem again is that we prefer to do most of our advocacy on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, instead of actually going to where it actually matters. Did we actually lend our voices? Like I said, the protest that happened 2 weeks ago, as far as I'm concerned, I saw it. I saw how they protested, and I saw how the protest actually yielded result to the extent that the Senate actually had to cut short their recess to come back in order to attend to that electoral reforms. To me, like I said, it depends on how you're assessing it. But to me, I feel this is actually a good yield. This is actually a good harvest from that protest that has been happening.
Okay.
So as Nigerians, I think we must learn to be very much strategic in our engagement. Yes, engagement like this are very important. But again, we must actually take a step further to start attending some of these programs, to start attending some of these hearings, to start even attending sittings. Sometimes when the House of Reps or Senate are sitting, it is open for people to go sit down in the gallery, observe that sitting so that you can be able to appreciate and understand to what extent are these people actually providing solutions to our country. Am I saying they are perfect enough? Far from it. That is not my assessment.
All right.
But for us to call them rubber stamp, this and that, when I hear these words, sometimes I just smile and I feel that this is very extreme.
All right. Thank you very much. Would like to get your last words before we conclude the program.
My last word is actually to just, again, re-echo some optimism. The system that we are trying to fix, governance system, leadership system, etc., is not going to work itself out until everyone, when I say everyone, I mean from the leadership, the followership, every strata of the society, put our hands, our brains, and our minds together in a synergy to produce the kind of society we want.
All right.
The days of manna falling from heaven are over. I read that in Exodus. From that time, I've never seen where manna falling from heaven and people picking. Whatever manna we want as a people must be planted, must be harvested, must be stored, must be cooked before they are finally consumed.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwambuge. We appreciate your coming to Leadership Dialogue. We definitely appreciate your insight, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, and I commend the great work that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. Esther Ndoma, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime.
Now, all right. So that comes to the end of Leadership Dialogue on LJE News. We appreciate the listeners and the viewers out there. Don't forget to share, follow, like, and subscribe at LJE News.